The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. We're really excited to have you with us. Can I ask you just to type into the questions pod on the right-hand side if you can hear us and see your screen, and in a minute we'll get going. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a questions pod. I can hear perfectly. Thanks, Shaz. Okay, great. Welcome to this webinar where we're going to be discussing where innovation can improve and add value to your business. We've planned for the session to be roughly 30 minutes in length and then to allow some time at the end to take your questions. There's a questions box on the right-hand side of the screen, so feel free to drop in any questions as you go, and we'll take those at the end and come back to them and pick the most pertinent ones. So please feel free to drop in your questions as we go in the questions pod on the right-hand side. So firstly, I wanted to introduce myself. My name's Vernon. I'm a Senior Product Specialist for the Innovation Academy, which is a training division within Informa, a FTSE 100 company based in the UK. We organize public innovation programs, and we also run private customized in-house training sessions for clients in areas surrounding design thinking, business model innovation, as well as technology areas such as artificial intelligence, big data, blockchain, and Internet of Things. We're probably best known for our 5-day innovation mini MBA, which we run twice a year at the Google Academy in London. So joining me today is Nicola Darke, Customer Success Director from Wazoku. Welcome, Nicola. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Could you tell us a little bit more about Wazoku and yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Grant. Delighted to be participating in the webinar today. So yes, Wazoku is a crowdsourcing company, and we help organizations across the globe reach innovation and engagement goals. And really, we do that by our core method is through our primary product, which is a SaaS platform, which is an idea management tool. So we also have another tool called Pulse, which is an innovation maturity self-assessment tool for organizations, so they can learn and see how they can grow and progress at getting good at innovating. But with our main product, our Idea Spotlight, which is our idea management platform, we really provide a lot of expertise to businesses, get them set up using the platform of how to run innovation initiatives within their business and affect real change, whether that might be cultural or from a commercial perspective. And as Customer Success Director, my team work directly with clients to help make them the experts at this, on the platform and on methods which will get them results within their business.
Brilliant. I think those challenges really speak to our clients and our markets. So the reason we wanted to put on this webinar is that we interact with a lot of people all around the world who are often developing new innovation functions or structuring or scaling up their current innovation practices. And we often see a lot of confusion and challenges around the different areas where innovation can take place. We see challenges in terms of collaboration between the different business functions and units, how to progress ideas that people have in different areas, and how to get traction to turn innovation ideas into something tangible. I wondered, Nicola, what are the most common corporate innovation challenges that you come across with your clients when you speak to them?
Okay, so there are many, obviously, and I'm sure everybody listening will have all of their own. But some of the most common ones that we see very typically at the top, the buy-in and commitment to actually make changes in the business. So you might find that as an innovation role within a business, or maybe even an operations role, maybe given the mandate to innovate, but actually how that's going to happen, and then within that role, the requests you have of the business require a lot of buy-in and commitment to make it happen. So we see that very often needing to innovate can be what we call water cooler chat, where senior executives see that, you know, it's something that they need to address, but really committing to what that means in reality can be a struggle. So, you know, the governance that wraps around innovation and really freeing up the business to do what needs to happen is key under that buy-in piece. I think some other things that we look at are potentially kind of the fear of engaging and tackling the workforce and innovating as a business. You know, for many large organizations, that's a big task. You know, your people are key to change. If you want your organization to change, you need your people to change with you. Otherwise, you know, they are the sum total of your business, your organization. And with lots of things like automation coming, AI, you know, there is a tendency perhaps not to want to necessarily engage or tackle the workforce, and that people may buy in solutions or look at the sack versus skill dilemma of maybe cutting swathes of the workforce to free up to a different way of working, or potentially new skill sets that they're not quite sure how to develop within their workforce. And then I guess, sorry, Grant.
No, Karen.
And then I guess where to innovate is you know, a huge one. Finding the right business area, the business need, the customer need, the right question to ask the business. You know, as a crowdsourcing company, we see organizations really scratching their head of you know, finding that right issue or question to put their finger on and get solutions for. And you know, finding the right area to attack is really key, and you know, spending time to question that is important rather than making too many assumptions, because very often businesses may assume that, oh, we need a new product or we need a new way of engaging with customers, but you know, to think about this from an innovation perspective or from a design thinking perspective, one shouldn't make assumptions. We need to be clear about what it is that we need to address, where we need to innovate. And then finally, I might say the language around innovation is really important. Actually, what do you mean by innovation within your business? Very often we get businesses coming to us who say they want radical change, they need, you know, real shift within their business. But then when we sit down with them and understand where they are, what their capabilities are, it becomes apparent that actually what they probably need immediately is just to start small and make tweaks and move from there, because that's the reality for them. And, you know, that's fine. Everybody needs to go on a journey, but being realistic about that within your business is key. So setting the right language around innovation, making sure people understand it can come in many shapes and forms, and that really, you know, improving, changing, reworking, readdressing things is all part of innovation. And is that enough to start with?
No, that's brilliant. It really sets the scene. I suspect everybody on the call is nodding their heads. I bet we can all really relate to those challenges. I always find it so fascinating how right across the world, even though the environments are so different, the challenges are so similar. So Nicola, you've put together some really cool case studies and examples of where you've worked with companies that have tackled these problems. So we'd love to dive into them. And the first one we've got up is Waitrose. So tell us a little bit about the background of Waitrose and the challenges they were experiencing.
Of course, yeah. So maybe just to set the scene for this slide and for the next slide ahead, just really talking about the different horizons that you have within innovation. And, you know, most of the people on the call will understand this, that, you know, you can look at different size of change and impact that you want to make in the business. And so, you know, we label this with 3 labels in Wazoku, where we talk about incremental, which are the small tweaks, the process improvement, the continuous improvement that can go on the business. So small change to existing things. Then moving up to the next level, which we call differentiated, which is a much more sizable change in your business, bigger bang impact, requires more time and effort and business engagement to achieve, but has a more sizable impact on your business, maybe more customer facing or product or external facing rather than changing the existing internal. And then the third being radical, which is, you know, where we really look at real business pivot or kind of fundamental market shift. So with Waitrose, a client that we've been working with for many years now, they have chosen to focus on the incremental piece to start off with their initiative using our platform within their business. And you know, this sits within the operational improvement team within Waitrose, and in fact, this is actually how they manage their workload. And everybody in the business now knows that if a small change needs to be made, this is the process. Submitting an idea is a way to go about doing that. And so Waitrose have done a fantastic job of, you know, working on shop floor process improvements and engaging their wide workforce, you know, decentralized workers, non-desk based shift workers, to come together to engage and to spot those incremental changes that can be made across the business. And they've got fantastic throughput in doing so. I think they take forward about 20% of the ideas that they get through. And obviously you can see the stats on the slide shows you the level of savings that they have made across the business from the small changes. And I think, you know, some key points to make about small changes is that it's accessible, and it can be a really good place to start with innovation in your organization. Because when you are concerned about tackling your workforce, or you are concerned about the level of engagement that you might need, small, local process improvement tweaks which relate to, you know, the day job at hand, relating to that person directly, are very simple and easy for people to put forward and suggest. You know, you're not asking them to change the world or to come up with the new world's next best thing for your business. You're just asking them for a simple idea that they will see will impact their lives or the lives of the customers on a very, very day-to-day basis. So that's a really good place to start for engagement, to make innovation accessible. And in fact, you know, we use the language of everyday innovation within our business, where, you know, we make it commonplace. We don't make it a big mountain to climb and a big scary object that we need to tackle. Innovation is just something that everybody does. And so making it accessible and simple is a good way to start on that journey. And, you know, to the point I made earlier about buy-in being a common corporate struggle, small tweaks can be a really good way to start to show value and start to show margin gain and seek buy-in at the top level. And, you know, I know Waitrose has done an amazing job of this. You know, again, you can see from the stats, they've had tremendous number of ideas through. You know, very simple single ideas have generated sizable savings in and of themselves, and collectively, you know, it's a vast number. And when you present that to the top, you know, they start to see the little margins that you're creating with the business by engaging people, by asking simple questions, by getting simple ideas. And, you know, that allows you and justifies you as your role, whether you're an operational improvement manager or you're an innovation manager or whatever it might be, to, you know, it gives you more license within the business to then ask for more buy-in and more budget to be fed back to you, to allow you to then open up and ask bigger questions or make bigger change across the organization. And, you know, that's also where the platform can be a really good way of achieving your targets, or crowdsourcing can be a good way of achieving your targets. Because, you know, whatever your objective is within the business, whatever problem or task it is that you have to solve, innovation can be a really a great way of addressing that, right? Because whatever your objective is, you know, it's going to be bigger and better than what it was last year. And so it's going to require new ways of doing things. And, you know, new ways of doing things is just another label for innovation. And I think sometimes people don't necessarily connect the dots. They think, you know, their objectives is their day job and innovation is something else. And actually, it's really all the same. It's really how you're going to meet your business goals, however you choose to break that down.
I love this example. I think you're right. I think often we think that innovation has got to be those rock star radical transformations, and actually there's huge value in small process innovation. And I love that concept of linking it to your day job. So it doesn't need to be something integrated. You can create a culture. We can engage staff at all levels, and it's something we can do daily, weekly, monthly to deliver, in this case, really substantial results.
Exactly. And I think the final point I might make on this is that, process improvement can work in any department. You don't need to be an operational improvement manager to run this. Any process, any department within your business has areas of tweaks and improvements it can make. So, it goes across any industry, and it just takes a little bit of lateral thinking to apply it to your job role or to apply it to your department. And, you can ask a very simple question around a more focused topic within the business. So, as an example, potentially, how can we improve our customer transaction process? And I bet there's a million tweaks that you can make in that piece, whatever business you are right now, to tighten that up, to make it a better experience for the customer, to cut out waste, whatever it might be.
Yeah, test and measure and anchor back in culture. Brilliant. So the next case study that you brought for us is on Aviva. And this case study was having a look at corporate innovation using a platform to drive employee engagement across a huge global organization. And a lot of our students are part of multinational organizations with all the challenges that brings. So tell us a little bit about this one.
Okay, so again, Aviva have been working with us for several years now, and a contrast to Waitrose. So going back to the innovation horizons that I mentioned, Waitrose was started out in incremental. I would say Aviva started out in the differentiated space, wanting to make bigger change. It started with senior leadership team wanting to see that bigger shift across the business. And so, how do you do this as someone that's tasked with that job, to innovate at scale? And so what Aviva have done is they have used the platform to ask a very big question across the organization, and for them it surrounds, the question is essentially, how do we improve our business offering by putting the customer at the heart of what we do? And they call it the customer cup, this specific example, and it's out there, you can go and find information on that. But that's a very big question, which then requires answers to feed into much bigger change. And so all the things that come along with that are a higher sign-off level, more budget, more time to process and evaluate these ideas, and ultimately potentially project to then kind of implement those ideas going forward. And so what Aviva do is they run this as a competition. And so they make it fun, and they make it a big bang and a big song and dance about it. And yes, they put money into communications, and they ask their workforce to come together, and each idea requires, I think it's a team of 5 or 6 to validate that idea in order for that idea to progress, because you're showing that it's been collaborated on and that people are putting their heads together. And then it goes through rounds to be evaluated throughout the business, each round stepping up in terms of seniority level. And then at the end, they come together, the top ideas are pitched to the senior leadership team, maybe they get time with the digital team to develop their idea into a proof of concept, etc. And they've had some amazing ideas. They have had some big ideas through, and you can see a couple of examples here. But these ideas, are benefiting both the customer and Aviva. So, for example, the partnership piece there, that's around disaster recovery, and that idea has essentially allowed them to speed up solution delivery to that client. So when you have disaster recovery, it takes you time to process your claim. Obviously you're in a bit of a panic if you're in that situation, and you need support immediately, and processing claim and paperwork takes a little bit of time. So with their partnerships, they have sped that up tremendously so that people can rebuild their lives pretty much instantaneously by being able to buy and transact and process what they need very, very quickly whilst the claim is processed in the background. And this is an amazing differentiator for their solution, for for them as a provider, which obviously puts the customer at the heart of what they do, but also for them as a business, it's brilliant that they're able to open up new partnerships across industry. But in terms of employee engagement and, looking at the cultural shift within the business and, how you make this work and how you make this a success, I think what's key to what Aviva have done here is, this is a very strong internal branding message around working for the customer. And, when you want to make big change and you want to engage your wider workforce, you need to find something that everybody can get behind. And, customer is common to all, and being clear that that's what everybody needs to focus on and find a solution for is good. It's a simple approach. Obviously, people concern about silos within their business and different departments having different focuses. So picking something that everybody can get behind and buy into is a great way to drive that employee engagement. And, running it as a competition and being clear that every year we do something really special to think differently about our customers means that everyone in that business knows how important the customer is to Aviva, and are really willing and excited to get behind it because they see the pomp and the fun of a competition. They see that they get to pitch and have fun at the end of it. They're incentivized, they're encouraged, and it's a regular thing. So you're starting to build the habit that this is something that we do as a business, and it's not scary, it's exciting, and we see cool changes that we're making. This habit setting, or this internal branding piece, has allowed Aviva now to think about how they develop out their innovation within the business more broadly and work on a more always on approach to innovation. So it's not so episodic and concerted effort every year, that the workforce are now used to putting ideas in, they're used to this process, they understand what's important. You can now start to build out your approach to this. Don't need to wait for a competition.
I love this example because it really shows the power of that differentiated innovation and what can be done if you get that senior leadership drive behind it across so many different locations with so many people. We get a lot of people in our courses that are mid to senior manager, director level. They might be a technical specialist within a team. Do you think they could take this process and sort of start it from where they are as a proof of concept with the aim of scaling it up to something like this?
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are or where you start. There are certain approaches that can work anywhere, and a competition is a really fun way of engaging people in innovation, and you can start a small competition. You could do something within your department, and again, to the point of getting everybody pumped around a specific thing that matters to them. That's a nice way of doing it, and again, that allows you a proof point of making change or how it has worked within one department, for you to then be able to start to roll it out to other departments. And that goes for any approach here, even with the incremental improvement piece. Start in one department, show your proof, and then start to roll it out to others.
Yeah, brilliant. So start from where you are and build on it. And then the last case study that you put together for us is where you worked with a company called SSCL, and they provide a number of services for government clients. What I find particularly interesting about this case study is it involves bringing so many different companies together. Each company's got their own processes, their own culture, and it's a really great example of alignment and the results that you can create with that alignment.
Absolutely, Grant. So just to kind of continue the points I've made through. So going back to the Innovation Horizons piece, actually SSCL have made, a combination of different sides of change within their business. But absolutely, the point here is about bringing different organizations together. And, SSCL is formed primarily out of a joining between Sopra Steria and the Cabinet Office, and then they are working with public sector organizations very closely, either placing staff in or working very closely with them to help change and transform their business. So what they provide as an organization is around business excellence, business services and transformation to that public sector. So they need to practice what they preach. So are very focused on getting everybody together and behind transformation and innovation, and creating that culture, and collaboration and engagement is obviously a key part of that. So for them, they use the platform to align themselves as a business behind one message. So, you know, it's a place that they can have common language and common goals. And so, you know, that's also a real key value of innovation, or of certainly of crowdsourcing, is that, you know, as a business, you have your strategy for whatever time scale you've set it. How many people in your business know what your strategy is and know how they can directly contribute to achieving it? And so, you know, what SSCL have done very well is make sure that everybody is focused on their business goal. And, you know, one of those goals is working well together. And so they have used the platform to directly address that and push that message and ask that question, setting out the way that they want to grow together as a business. And they've even run challenges around this, which have got them great ideas through from the workforce wanting to really run with this, wanting to make sure that the workforce excels together. And one of the ideas that they came up with was called the SSCL way. And that's now implemented across the business, where within SSEL they have a set of behaviors and values and approaches and ways of working that now everybody that joins SSEL, everybody that works for SSEL, is kind of indoctrinated into or sheep dipped into, to make sure that they know that's how things get done in the business. As a business, this is how they perform, which I think is really, really cool. And you know, that feeds into mindset and attitude and approach around innovation. You know, I talked about habit in Aviva, but all these things are super, super key. And one of the fun campaigns that SSCL have done is called Be More Lion, because they want to instill that sense of pride within their workforce of what they do, that courage, that focus to go out and achieve what they want to as a business. So I think they're a really, really good example of bringing their workforce together, you know, disparate workforce, as you say, different cultures, bringing different parts of public sector, which, you know, has its own issues to tackle in terms of change and process, and manage to knock down all those silos by, you know, really uniting people behind how they want to be and how they want to achieve.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nicola. There's some amazing action points in there that you could apply at any level of an organization. So really, really useful learnings from there. So we've talked through 3 case studies. We've got lots of cool ideas and insights on where innovation can add value. We can look at the different horizons and how we can engage employees and build that culture of innovation. If you had to pick the top 3 things you think people should consider or focus on to get the fastest traction in their business, what would those 3 ideas be, do you think?
Well, okay, so top 3 key takeaways, I would say, think about your audience. Who is it that you're innovating with? You know, whether it is your workforce, your ecosystem, so, you know, your immediate kind of business ecosystem, or your end customer, and think about how they need to be engaged specifically. And so, you know, even today we've talked about workforce very specifically, you know, within that, what type of worker do you have, looking at whether it's large corporate and global, or whether it is decentralized, non-desk based. And, you know, think about what your audience does, and think about what's going to unite them, and think about what is going to be a good place to start for them and how you can support that. Then number 2, I would say, look at your innovation targets, or, you know, whatever it is that you're tasked to do. Look at it as a journey, and be very clear about, you know, what your journey is, and understand that it might change, I think is important, but plot out, you know, where you're starting, pick that area. So, you know, we talked about workforce, but if you're going to start in the incremental space, or if you're going to start with maybe a fun competition or a more strategic business imperative, but pick that area and just commit to it. And, you know, learn. It's not necessarily going to be successful immediately, but that's okay, because you need to adopt that innovation attitude and mindset, that from there you need to iterate and then you need to grow and mature what you're doing. And the language that we use is start, embed, expand. And learning and measuring is a super important part of innovation. So pack that into your journey and see it as a journey. And then finally, number 3, I would say process and governance. So how is it that you innovate within the business? What is it that people need to do? Where do they need to engage? What are you asking of them? And who within your business is participating or managing that process? And you need to communicate that loud and clear, because as we talked about at the beginning, there's confusion over what innovation even is sometimes. So, be very clear about how these people can do it and how they can help drive the business forward.
Brilliant. Those are some awesome insights. So if I summarize my takeaways, I think it's consider incremental, differentiated, and radical innovation, and think about how to start, embed, and then expand. And I really love that comment about see it as a journey. We sometimes think that innovation is once-off sprints or conferences, but actually it's got to be a cultural process embedded at all levels. So I think you really speak to everybody here when you say process and governance. So thanks again. That's awesome. We've got some time for some questions. So if you've got a question that you'd like to pose to Nicola, you can drop it into the question pod on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to drop some in, and we'll take a few questions from the audience. One of the first questions we've had is, will we be sharing the slides? So absolutely, we will send you a link to the slides after this recording. So we'll share that with you. Let's see, a couple of furious typings going on. Let's see what questions we get. We got the first one. Nicola, the question is something to the extent of, what are some of the ways to measure success and demonstrate traction? So if we're starting an innovation process, what are some of the metrics that we should be using to measure and demonstrate success?
Okay, so obviously, from our perspective as a business, where we come from as a crowdsourcing platform, we break things down into kind of 2 core areas, primarily actually engagement, and then output, which is, I guess, the more commercial end of things. But, engagement is a prerequisite to then getting the wider business shift. And so, having some metrics around who and how many of your business are engaging, and then the kind of level of input and quality of input that you're getting around number of ideas, how many are being progressed, maybe why they're not being progressed, making sure that that aligns to your goals. As a business, you might say, we've committed to spending X amount on innovation, and then actually you see that many projects or ideas are not taken forward because they cost too much. So, sometimes the analysis of your data and how you're innovating can reveal some home truths to you. But measure your engagement, I think, is really important. And then beyond that, setting yourself some targets around when you want to see your first proof points, even if it's small, and setting expectation sensibly within the business about, how that stacks up. So if you're looking at incremental change and improvement, setting sensible targets around what that is, whether it's time saved, whether it's money saved, and then there are the more larger intangible things around bringing you closer to the customer, that kind of stuff, which you may well have your own metrics within the business for. But I think maybe one of the key things just in general to mention around measuring things is, if you've got an innovation role out there, you've probably got quite a tough job on your hands when you're talking to your senior leadership team, because they tend to have traditional mindsets around how to measure. They like traditional metrics. Startups talk about this all the time, that they present a hockey stick curve for buy-in or for investment, and that's what execs like to see. But innovation doesn't really work that way. And the beginning of your processes where you're identifying issues within the business to solve and you're getting ideas around how to do it, your metrics should be around learning. and how intelligent you're becoming as a business. And then as you start to progress those ideas through and prototype and get, you know, MVPs or your projects that you're piloting, then your measures should start to shift back to more traditional metrics where you're starting to evaluate the actual business value. And, you know, it depends on the size of change that you're making, as I've said, whether you're trying to prise open the jaws of margin or if you're trying to look at new shifts that you can make.
I think that's great insight. You're right. So use the traditional metrics, but focus on a holistic approach, and rather than one KPI like number of ideas generated. So that's really good stuff. We got a question from Rosario asking if you've got any examples of overcoming resistance to innovation. So she's saying sometimes you find that new ideas can bring change and people may resist that process. Had any experience with that and how to overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a million ways that you can tackle this question. And, you know, resistance, you have to look at the reason why they're resisting, I think, and you have to look at what level in the business is resisting. So if it's your senior leadership team, you need to understand if it's a funding piece, if it's that they are nervous that it's going to divert away from their lovely clean 5-year plan that they have and it doesn't fit the mold, then, you know, there's a conversation to be had about really what innovation means, and that yes, things are actually going to have to change. Or, you know, if it's the wider business as large, you can find that, you know, certainly at middle management, there can be a lot of resistance. You know, these people have fought hard for their positions, and, you know, change can be quite scary because what does it mean for their role, or what does it mean for their team or their development path? And, you know, really this is a human element where generally people like to feel like they've been taken into consideration. So whether they have been part of the conversation around what needs to change and how it needs to change, and being able to see the value for them, or sometimes it's just happening very, very quickly without them having time to understand it. And so that's where communication is key here. And, you know, we spend a lot of time, invest a lot of effort with clients, talking to them about their communication plan around innovation, how you're talking about it, how you are softening people up to it landing or to the initiative that you're doing. And so, you know, if you do get those departmental resistances, work with them, figure out what their bugbears are, and show them how you can help use innovation to help them achieve their targets, which, you know, we talked about before. And, you know, as I said, incremental is a really nice way to make innovation accessible and simple for people to engage with if there's any kind of fear or reticence behind that resistance. But there's, you know, we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, for days. Yeah, communication, I guess. We got a question from Nabila that says, what type of roles should you have in an innovation team? So sometimes we find innovation is driven by a department or by marketing. Is there a really good composition of an innovation team that you should aim towards?
I think that kind of depends, you know, on your business, and again, what innovating you're doing. So for Waitrose, you know, continuous improvement sits within that operational improvement team, and so I think that sends a message that you can disperse the power of innovation across the business, and as you know, as long as you're feeding metrics into one place, I think that's possible. I think that's good, that it doesn't necessarily need to be sitting with one team to innovate the entire business. That's, you know, not necessarily feasible or practical. Having somebody that has responsibility to drive a strategy, though, around innovation and how you shift is key. But I think, you know, general consensus is, and, you know, certainly if you look at Eric Ries or his approach, the startup way, that cross-functional teams are really important in innovating, that you are getting the knowledge and the buy-in from the wider business. And so, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to innovate, whatever that project is, that you're looping in the relevant expertise across the business to bring it together and make sure that you're considering how it's landing, how it's impacting customers, how it's impacting processes, and people are working together. But also, you know, to answer that question from a crowdsourcing perspective, we find that sometimes this sits within an innovation team. They need to figure out how they're going to crowdsource across their business. They manage it initially, then over time they scale out and they start to, as I say, devolve power out to other departments across their business. Does that answer that question, do we think?
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, spot on. We've got a question from Brian, which says, what are your thoughts on dealing with a command and control organizational structure and behavior? So how can you enable innovation in what could possibly be described as an autocratic environment?
Cripes.
It's a tough one. I suspect that many people deal with that challenge, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that is the ultimate, you know, mental shift that business needs to make culturally. And, you know, command and control is tough because that's where innovation gets stifled, right? If you command what's going to happen, then okay, so have you set out the innovation agenda and told everybody what they need to do to change? Probably not. You have set goals and everybody needs to figure out how to do it. So I appreciate that can be constricting in terms of the methods that you might use to innovate, or you know what you need from the business, but it's difficult without knowing a specific example. But you know, to take the Waitrose approach, trying something small within your remit, being able to show whether it's even just learnings that you're getting more intelligent as a business, or whether it's being able to show small levels of margin that you can then take and have a more meaningful conversation to allow you to free up, whether it's resource or budget or you know whatever it is that you need, whether you need that noose loosened. But you know, I think really that speaks to a bigger struggle that many people are seeing in businesses, that leadership have done things a certain way for a certain amount of time and it's worked very well for them, thanks very much, and they're just not sure if they really need to worry about changing before they exit that business. And so, you know, that's a big conversation, and it can be very difficult to tackle from further down the organization when, you know, it's just across that board at that level. I mean, if that person has a specific example that they want to talk through, then like I think you have my details at the end, so I'm very happy, and that goes for anybody with questions at the end.
No, I think that's great. So start with a prototype, start with proof of concept, and we'll definitely share your details. So we've got loads more questions coming through. We will answer them on email. We've got time for one more, and we've got a question from Deval that says, have you found your clients experiencing a retention of staff from innovation? So is there a way to use innovation as a tool to retain key staff?
That's a great question, and I think absolutely. I think it's a really important and critical way to retain and attract staff, because, you know, innovation is all about human need, and as humans, we all want to be the best version of ourselves, and being able to work in a business that provides that as a capability, and where I know that I'm allowed to contribute to new and exciting things, or I know I'm going to be developed because I'm moving in an organization that moves, is going to keep me on my toes. I think that's a real pull for many people. But you know, also we've seen, you know, great examples of people that we work with within organizations who are driving innovation initiatives, and you know, it's a way for them to kind of carve out their career and show their expertise, which is cool and fun for them. And then I guess one of the things that we use in the platform to really push this is gamification, which, you know, is a simple mechanism. There's other ways that you can look at it, but essentially we're looking at incentivization here, and encouraging people to innovate, and, you know, rewarding the ones that do, because absolutely, as a business, as I said, you know, at the start, automation and AI means that some jobs are going to shift, and people won't necessarily need to leave a business, but they might need to review what the value is that they're bringing, and rework their role to adapt and work in a different way. And so allowing people to contribute to innovation, incentivizing them to come forward with ideas, to work on projects, to help evaluate, to get more learnings is a great way to identify those people who are keen and who want to be with the business. But it makes them feel great when they are rewarded for putting forward an idea. They feel valued, and we've seen this across many organizations. And in fact, a customer of ours, Abellio Greater Anglia, is really good at this. They award badges to their workforce as they complete certain tasks in the platform, as they contribute on certain levels. And again, these are decentralized, non-desk based shift workers, and they get super excited when they are acknowledged for their input, and they feel like they're growing and developing with the business, and they get excited about it. And to further your innovation ambitions, you then are starting to identify little networks of champions, of innovators who can also go out and spread the message and encourage other people across the business to innovate.
Brilliant. Some really great take-home points there. I think this is where we've got to stop time-wise. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and thanks, Nicola. That was some amazing points. We'll be posting a recording of this webinar and emailing the link out to you all after this, and also sharing it on our YouTube channel. Nicola, I also hear that you'll be a guest speaker on our 5-day innovation mini MBA we organize at Google in London in June.
Yes, Grant, I'm super excited. It's been great to just talk through a few things today, but we'll take a different approach at the event, and hopefully we can do some more interactive conversations. And if anybody who's on this today is going to be there, then obviously we can talk about specific examples. But yeah, really looking forward to being part of that and meeting some more people who are also on their journey.
Yeah, creating the innovation culture. Brilliant. So if you'd like some more information about our training, you'll see my Innovation Academy email address on the bottom left. If you'd like to learn more about Wazoku and the platforms and services they offer, you'll see Nicola's details on the right-hand side. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope to see you at the next webinar. And Nicola, thanks once again. It's been a really useful session. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Grant. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.